tour guide and research assistant here in the Visitor Centre in Tulsk in County Roscommon. I'm also the co-author of several publications pertaining to Rathcroghan, including the Rathcroghan Archaeological Trail and also in 2018 the Rathcroghan Guidebook. And I'd like to, as I say, welcome you very much here today for one of our alternative Heritage Week events, where I'm going to talk a little bit about this monument here, Rathcroghan Mound. So it's a particular one that I would spend a lot of time daily visiting and talking about. So I'm just going to say a little bit about it for you here. So, as I said, you're very welcome here with me to Rathcroghan, or Cruachan in Irish. And Rathcroghan is what's described as the prehistoric royal site, or royal capital of Connacht, the Western province we're in here. And these royal sites in Ireland have a number of similar features and functions. So in times long ago, before you had any towns, roads, villages, cities, this is our timeline of Irish history here. It stretches all the way back to the Neolithic, but I'm looking here at the Vikings and some of the Christian settlements in the 9th century onwards. With the Vikings, you begin to get, I suppose, Viking settlements evolve into some of the better known cities we have in Ireland today. So Cork, Waterford, Limerick, Dublin, those are Viking settlements. But in times before that, you have a much more smaller, scattered farming population. And this royal site, Rathcroghan is a royal site here, traditionally would have been used as a place of gathering. Particularly important at times of the year, important to a farming community, so spring, summer, harvest, winter, when people needed to come together, this would have been used as a place of assembly. In times of war, if you had trouble with your neighbours, perhaps it was used as a place to mass up together your armies, and as I mentioned, it's named as the royal site. So these great assemblies, or Einigi, Oscuelga again, these great fairs, and they were then particularly associated with the crowning and the inauguration of kings. And the medieval triads of Ireland actually records Rathcroghan, or Cruachan here, as one of the three great sites of assembly here in Ireland as well. So we have that noted for ourselves within that. And so, as I say, as a royal site here, what we're left with on the ground today, spread out over a vast 4 square miles, and in the visitor centre here in Tulsk, this monument, Rathcroghan Mound, is situated about 4 kilometres of the busy M5 Westport Road, and we'll be heading out there a little bit later on to have a look at it as well. But what we're left with on the ground there, spreading out from around this, over 4 square miles, so this is an enormous site, are 240 various monuments, ranging in date all the way back to the Neolithic, to the New Stone Age. We have evidence of court tombs out here at the site as well, all the way then to the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the medieval period. This site has been in use, and we'd argue very, very strongly still in use today, because here we are, I'm talking to you, I'm doing something here. Of those 240 sites, we have 60 protected national monuments, and of those national monuments, 28 of them are burial mounds, possibly of the Bronze and the Iron Age. So Rathcroghan has another function as well as the site of Great Assembly. It's recorded in the 12th century Laur na Hira, Book of the Dun Cow, transcribed in the monastery of Clonmacnoise. It's recorded as one of the 3 great pagan cemeteries of Ireland, or burial ground for kings, along with Brunaboyne, the Boyne Valley, and Taltown as well. So if you like, this is the royal burial site for the province of Connacht. As well as these funeral monuments, we have numerous other archaeological features. We have raths, ring forts, medieval field systems, linear earthworks, the ritual mound of Rathcroghan I mentioned. We have a cave that my colleague Elaine is going to talk a little bit about, and that's recorded sometimes as a gate to hell, but maybe she can dispel that myth for us. That's a little bit too strong. But we have a huge body of archaeology on the ground here, but the focal point of all of this, if you like, period of Irish history is this monument here, Rathcroghan Mound. If Rathcroghan was a big wheel, every single thing focuses in on it, and it's a substantial monument. At 5 metres in height, standing 145 metres above sea level at its base. At its base, it's 88 metres in diameter, so almost 90 metres. So it rivals, if you like, any contemporary monument on the island of Ireland for its size and its stature. This is a significant monument in size and stature. And so what could it have been used for? We mentioned this is a royal cemetery, so could it be a funeral monument? We mentioned this is a place of great assembly associated with inauguration. Could that have been its use? Something else we possibly have to consider is back in the Iron Age, and important for us to note, the Iron Age for Ireland, this is prehistory for us. We don't have any written history from back in this period. As far as we know, the 5th century, the coming of Christianity, that brings with it the Latin alphabet and the first attempts to put Irish into writing. As I mentioned, as far as we know, before that, our tradition could have been an oral one, the passage of knowledge orally. So when we get back into the Iron Age, it's a period a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more hidden from us. But in the Iron Age, this is where it's set, a very, very famous figure that I'm sure needs no introduction to you, called Queen Maeve. This is where she rules all her province of Connacht from and launches our national epic, the Táin Cúailnge, the Cataract of Cooley. Something I'm sure you might agree we probably don't make half enough of here in this country. But what's lovely for us here in Cruachan, or Rathcroghan, is that tale, that epic, if you like, account, not only begins here, but also ends here as well. So there's a massive body of folklore and mythology associated with this site. Now, an 8th century tale called An Táin Freig, the Cataract of Freig, which accounts the arrival of a legendary warrior of Connacht here to Maeve's palace in Cruachan. It's contained today, the earliest version, in the Book of Leinster, which is above in Trinity College in Dublin. That tale involves a very, very elaborate description of Queen Maeve's palace, the finery of your house, right here in Cruachan. And I'm just going to read a tiny bit of that here to give you an idea of its size and its stature. This was the arrangement of the house. 7 partitions in it, 7 beds from the fire to the wall and the house all around. There was a fronting of bronze on each bed, carved red yew, all covered with fair varied ornament. There were 16 windows in it, and a shutter of copper for each of them. There was a lattice of copper across the skylight. 4 pillars of copper were over the bed of Ailill and Maeve, which stood in the middle of the house, all adorned with bronze. 2 borders of gilded silver were around it. A silver stave reached from the border to the crossbeams of the house. That's quite a fantastical structure, I'm sure you'd agree. And so, if ever a structure like that was ever to have existed, surely it would have had a place of prominence and importance here on the landscape in the centre of the royal site. In fact, this legendary residence was the site of the very, very famous pillow talk, which is the usual reason given for the launching of the Great Táin Cúailnge. So I mentioned that Rathcroghan or Cruachan is the location for the famous, or sometimes infamous, if you like, pillow talk of Queen Maeve and her husband Ailill, the usual reason given for the launching of the epic Táin Cúailnge. So I've come down here to a separate part of our exhibition. I'm standing here in front of the beautiful reproductions of Louis Le Brocquet's illustrations of Thomas Kinsella's 1969 translation of An Táin Cúailnge. So we're very fortunate here in the Visitor Centre to have these reproduced for ourselves. And this here is Le Brocquet's rendition of the pillow talk. And as I mentioned, it begins here in the royal palace, in the royal bed of Cruachan. Queen Maeve, Queen here of Connacht, daughter of Ucky Philip, the High King of Ireland, and her husband Ailill MacMata, a younger son of the King abroad in Leinster. They're in bed one night in the royal palace of Cruachan, and an argument breaks out between the two, because Ailill says to Maeve, "Aren't you a fortunate woman the day that you met me, and the day to be married to such a wealthy man as myself?" Now, important to note, in traditional Irish law and Brehon law, there are numerous types of marriage contracts, but Maeve and Ailill are engaged in the most preferred type, referred to as a marriage of equals. So their marriage contract requires them to be equal in every measure. So she pulls him up very quick and tells him that she's every bit as rich as him and every bit as equal. And so, like any good argument should between any couple, this goes back and forth all night until the following day. Nothing will do, but they will come out onto the plain of Cruachan, compile all their wealth and possessions to find out who really is the richer. And they find, when they make this comparison, that they're equal in every single measure except for one aspect. This one here, the fin bannock. So fin or fionn is the Irish for white or blonde or fair, bannock for loin or flank, this great white flank, white horned bull that's a part of Ailill's herd, and Maeve is no match in her own. Now this is no ordinary animal. It was said that 30 men could stand from the nape of his neck down to the tip of his tail. So that's good, 2 good Gaelic or hurling teams, so possibly the length of Hyde Park. So this is a substantial animal. This doesn't sit well with Maeve. She's a proud queen, so she inquires, is there anywhere in the island of Ireland the match of this great fin bannock? And she's informed that there's one, the Dun Cúailnge. So Dun, the Irish for brown, and Cúailnge for the Cooley Peninsula, all the way over in County Louth, clear across the country. And this Dun Cúailnge, this brown bull of Cooley, is the property of a chieftain named Dada MacFiachna. So Maeve immediately dispatches 9 messengers from her palace here in Cruachan, led by her chief messenger McCarthy, He's said to be able to cover the entire island of Ireland in a single day. With much haste, sent over to Dara to entreat him that if he'd loan Maeve, the Dun Cooney, the brown bull, and deliver it down here to these Macara Connacht, these plains in Connacht, he'd receive here in Cruachan the equivalent of all his own lands in Cooley, as well as many other riches and benefits. She even offers a Moscailga, what's referred to as Cordus Muscius Adoniha, which is the friendship of my thighs for the night. So she offers him everything that's going, and for Dara it's a fantastic deal, and he's so delighted with this bargain, he accepts wholeheartedly, and he throws out a feast for the messengers. And the messengers are weary from their travelling, so they accept this feast. And as they start to feast, they start to drink. As they start to drink, they start to boast, and they boast, Maeve is the most powerful woman in Ireland. If Dara hadn't agreed to give the bull willingly, she was surely going to take it off him anyway. The servants who are pouring the wine overhear this, report it back to Dara, and he's furious at the insult. So he sends the Connacht men packing home all the way back to Cruachan with their tails between their legs. They report back here to Maeve's palace, and what does she do? The very thing proposed in the first place. Here at Rathcroghan, or Cruachan, she amasses up together the armies of all Ireland to go clear across the country into the territory of Ulster. And I mention the name of our famous tale is on Táin Bo Cúine. Táin for a raid, Bo for a cow, and Cúine for the Cooley Peninsula, the cattle raid of Cooley. She launches from here to bring the brown bull back home here to Rathcroghan. So we've heard the elaborate descriptions of Maeve's palace. We've heard a little bit of some of the stories associated with it. So when we looked at Rathcroghan Mound, would this be the site of such a residence? We might wish this to be so, but unfortunately this is certainly not the case. From the 1990s onwards, geophysical investigation spearheaded by NUI Galway, particularly Professor John Waddell, Joe Fennick and Kevin Barton, revealed that Rathcroghan Mound is in fact not a dwelling place at all, but something more akin to a temple monument. The survey there revealed a massive 360 metre wide enclosure separating the mound from the rest of the landscape around it. It was accessed by a large avenue to the east, with a smaller northern enclosure again with an eastern facing avenue. This was not an easily approachable monument. It was a formidable approach. An intensive, again, geophysical survey revealed a series of monuments, temples perhaps, buried throughout the centre of the mound, culminating in a massive 30 metre structure built on the top, perhaps echoing the earlier monuments below. So this, if you like, was not a dwelling place. This was a place of ceremony, a place of ritual. What could have been going on up on here in prehistory? Could this have been the site for the inauguration of the Kings of Connacht? Okay, so we've come out the Schliassel, or as it's called today, the N5 road, directly here behind me. All the way out here to Rathcroghan Mound. I'm looking here at the Eastern Causeway on your left hand side, and we're going to, on this beautiful summer's evening, August evening, we're going to take a walk up to the top and have a look and see what we can see from there. here to Rathcroghan. I'm standing here at the foot, the base of the mound, facing into the eastern entrance here. So our avenue that we mentioned earlier, our ceremonial entrance, would have gone from behind me here directly out to over just beyond the stand of trees there, leading in, as I say, to a formal, formidable entrance into this monument here. Now, we have approximately 48,500 ring forts still extant on the island of Ireland today. Of those, approximately 50% or half have an entrance like this one that faces off to the east. But as we now know, this is not a dwelling place at all. And so we're going to take a quick walk to the top. So we've come up here onto the top of Rathcroghan Mound itself, at the very, very heart of this landscape. We're 150 metres above sea level. Now, the last pagan High King of Ireland, King Dahi, was proposed to be buried in the Royal Cemetery of Rathcroghan here in the year 429 AD. Now, King Dahi supposedly made it all the way over to the Alps as well. We're 150 metres above sea level, so in terms of the Alps, this would not even be a ledge or a step. Not very far, but I'm sure you'd agree on this beautiful summer's evening, as you take a look all around you, you get an extremely panoramic view. To the south of us, nothing in our way. Looking up over here to the northwest, we're looking at the Leitrim and the Sligo Mountains. Beyond this non-native stand of trees is Slieve Bawn. Beyond Slieve Bawn lies the River Shannon. That's where the territory of Connacht is bounded. So literally up on top of here, these beautiful Mochad of Connacht, these plains of Connacht, are as visible to us. Looking out this way to our west on a very fine day, maybe when we don't have so many clouds on the horizon, on a very fine day, Croagh Patrick is visible all the way over on the Atlantic coast in County Mayo. So standing up on top of here would have been the site of our 30-metre wide structure with the western facing entrance, a substantial monument. And I think you'll agree, whatever form and shape that monument took, when we look all around us here, it would have been a marker upon the landscape, visible all the way around as you come up onto the top of here. So as we stand up on top of here, we would have been looking at our substantial avenue leading out here to the east, to the edge of our 360-metre wide enclosure surrounding and separating this monument from the rest of the landscape about. We have our structures buried in the heart of it, culminating in our impressive 30-metre wide structure built up here on top. So what form or what type of ceremony could have gone on up on top of here? Could this have been the site where the King of Connacht was inaugurated and took his power? So whatever we can say about the usage of this enigmatic monument, Rathcroghan Mound here behind me, one thing we can say for sure, that a huge communal effort went in to the construction of this monument, the construction of the substantial enclosure, the eastern face and avenues, the monuments concealed within, culminating in our 30-metre structure built up on the top, that at a time when survival was a very, very hard game. Remember, this is an agrarian farming society. They're directly dependent upon their environment for their living. The threat of starvation is never very far away. That these people took the time out not only to build this monument and what was around it, but also to keep it, to maintain it over generations of prehistory. Why did they do this? Was to separate the divine from the mundane? Was it to contain the power they believed that was enclosed within? Well, whatever you can say on this beautiful summer's day, if you like, you can say, as soon as we begin to get settled history in Ireland, the very first farmers in the Neolithic, we've got people on the landscape here in Rathcroghan, and this has been a landscape in use ever since that time. And so when we look at Rathcroghan Mound here behind us, in a sense, the story of settled Ireland, of Irish history, is contained within it. So the next time you drive along this N5, this busy Dublin to Westport Road, and you're coming by and you look in and see this monument here, I hope that you won't look at it in just exactly the same way. And if you would like to know a little bit more, we'd be delighted to welcome you down here into Ireland's hidden heartlands in the county of Roscommon, in Cruachanee, the ancient sacred capital of Connacht. We'd be delighted if you come down here to visit us in the visitor centre in Tulsk, and to come out here to Rathcroghan, and we'll tell you all about it. Thank you very much.
you.